Hey, Suffolk County Congressman Nick LaLota here, checking in with you about big news on SALT. This week in Washington, we passed the one big beautiful bill out of the House of Representatives with a very key important provision on the state and local tax deduction. Now, SALT, as the state and local tax deduction is known, is vital to us on Long Island. And that's because we have the highest taxes in the entire country. Unfortunately, we're ranked about 50 out of 50 survey after survey on our tax climate. And SALT is one of the ways that we make that tax burden that comes from Albany a little bit easier. Now, unfairly, about 8 years ago, Washington capped the state and local tax deduction at $10,000, which, in my estimation, only made whole about 16% of Long Islanders. It was an unfairly low deduction that if I was in Congress at the time, I would not have voted to support. But that only satisfied about 16% of us on Long Island. And we've been struggling for the last 8 years on that very low deduction. Now, what's been on the table for this years-long discussion has varied. There's been a few of us who've been fighting quite hard, and sometimes even against our own party, to get a much higher cap. And what was offered most recently, is in addition to the $10,000 that only made about 16% of us whole, was $30,000. And the $30,000 cap, bear with me here a little bit, the $30,000 cap only made about 80% of us whole. And it made whole folks making about $250,000 or less, whose property taxes are about $15,000 or less. And that's been on the table after a lot of negotiations for the last 3 weeks or so. And unfortunately, I don't think $30,000 did it. $30,000 is not enough to earn my vote on this one big beautiful bill that, to be honest, has a lot of good provisions in it. Things on border security, energy dominance, making sure that we put our country on a better track fiscally. But that low number, that $30,000 number, would have only made about 80% of my constituents whole, and I held the line. And there was a lot of pressure from my colleagues who view SALT as a subsidy to the largesse of our bloated state government. And even some of my friends from the left think that SALT is somehow welfare for millionaires. Now, I think it's just a matter of fairness. New York sends way more to Washington than we get back in taxes. And I think SALT, a higher SALT cap, is one of the ways that we make that a little even. But that $30,000 number only made about 80% of us whole. So we held out, and guys like myself, Andrew Garbarino, Mike Lawler from Westchester, Young Kim from Southern California, Tom Kane from New Jersey, we held out and we held strong against our own party until finally, just about 12 or 18 hours before we voted on the bill, we agreed to a $40,000 cap. So rather than the $30,000 that only makes about 80% of us whole, we agreed to a $40,000 cap, which makes, bear with me here, there's salt, a little moisture here in Washington hurting me getting the salt out. But we finally agreed to a $40,000 cap that makes about 92% of us back at home whole. And 92% is a good number. Helps all the middle class, thankfully. It helps families who, generally speaking, earn incomes of about $350,000 and less, and who at the same time pay property taxes of about $20,000 or less. Now, I came to Washington promising to fight for the middle class, and this 92% or so filled up cylinder here represents my fight on SALT, that we wanted to ensure that whatever cap we agreed to made as many middle class families as whole as possible. I hope you think that was a good deal. I thought it was a good deal that I finally said yes to. The one big beautiful bill has a lot of good provisions in it. It locks in some low individual rates. It keeps the AMT fixed. It keeps the low business rates. It helps fortify our border, unleash American energy dominance, cut spending where we can while protecting good programs like Medicaid. This bill will hopefully advance in the Senate, ultimately be signed by the president. But this key SALT provision, we won big for about 92% of Long Island. Thanks so much. Check in with you later.